The sound of rain tapping on the windows matched the rhythm of my unease. My daughter Ellie had been quieter than usual for weeks, more withdrawn, skipping meals, staring off like she was holding back a storm. First, I chalked it up to teenage mood swings. But mother's intuition doesn't lie, and mine had been screaming. That night, after tucking her into bed and kissing her forehead like I always did, I noticed her pillow wasn't fluffed right. When I lifted it, a folded, crumpled note slipped out and fluttered onto the sheets. I froze. It wasn't addressed to anyone. Just messy handwriting in pencil on lined paper, words scratched in desperation. I wish I could tell Mom. But if I do, he said everything will fall apart. My heart stopped. I read it again. Then again. There was no name. No context. Just a silent scream for help sealed in graphite. I stared at the words like they were burning into my bones. He said everything will fall apart. Who was he? I wanted to wake Ellie up right then and ask. But she looked so tired, peaceful finally. I didn't want to scare her. So I tucked the note into my robe pocket and waited for morning. I didn't sleep. My husband, Mark, shifted beside me in bed, snoring lightly, completely unaware that something in our home was broken. The next day, after Ellie left for school, I searched her room, not because I didn't trust her, but because I was terrified for her. In the drawer of her nightstand, buried under old birthday cards and friendship bracelets, I found a small leather notebook. It had her name scribbled on the front, Ellie Carson. I flipped it open and scanned the pages. First, it was innocent drawings, class notes, doodles. But then I turned to the middle section. I hate how he makes me feel like I can't talk to Mom. He always says Mom will choose him over me. I heard him tell someone on the phone she's too naive to ever know. My blood ran cold. He. Again. Always he. Was she talking about Mark? I slammed the notebook shut, my hands trembling, my breath jagged. I felt like the walls of our home had been hiding something grotesque from me. The man I married. The man I built this family with. What the hell was happening? I needed answers. But I had no idea that the truth was darker than I ever imagined. The next morning felt like living in a cracked snow globe, familiar but ready to shatter. I poured Ellie her cereal while she played with the spoon, eyes glued to nothing. Mark strolled into the kitchen like every other day, planted a kiss on my cheek, and sipped his coffee. I studied him like a stranger. "Morning, sunshine," he said to Ellie. She flinched. It was small, almost imperceptible. But I caught it. And once you start looking for the cracks, you see them everywhere. After they left, Mark to his office downtown, Ellie to school, I called my best friend, Lena. She was the one person who'd never sugarcoat the truth. "Something's wrong," I said, pacing the living room, notebook in hand. "Is it Ellie?" she asked. I told her about the note, about the journal, about the repeated he. There was a pause. Then, "Danielle, you don't think Mark?" "I don't know," I whispered. "But whatever it is, she's scared of him. And he's hiding something." Lena exhaled sharply. "Do not let this slide." That evening, I set a trap. Mark always kept his phone face down, password locked. I offered to take his coat as he walked in, and while he stepped away to use the bathroom, I checked the pocket. His phone wasn't there. But his wallet was. Inside was a folded receipt from the Mariner Inn, a local hotel. Yesterday's date. 1 king suite. Paid in cash. I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. I confronted him at dinner, casually, carefully. "Hey, didn't you say you had meetings at the courthouse yesterday?" He nodded, chewing his steak. "Yeah, why?" "No reason. Just curious." He didn't blink. Didn't stutter. Just lied straight through his teeth. And Ellie? She barely touched her food. Again. That night, I waited until Mark was asleep. I tiptoed to his home office, booted up the laptop he thought I never touched, and went digging. emails, voicemails, calendar entries. Most were clean, until I saw a saved draft titled Termination Proposal D. Carson. Danielle Carson. Me. It was an outline, cold, clinical, of how to file for divorce, undercut my assets, and gain sole custody of Ellie on mental instability grounds. He hadn't sent it, but he'd written it. I closed the file, my hands shaking. My ears rang from the silence. Whatever I thought I knew about my husband, I was wrong. Dead wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him, not yet. That draft proved one thing. Mark was preparing for war while kissing me goodnight. I needed proof. Real proof. Not just scraps of suspicion. So I bought a voice-activated recorder online. The next morning, before heading to work, I slipped it under Mark's desk, tucked behind the leg. He had a habit of taking calls there when he thought no one was around. That night, while he was in the shower, I retrieved it. My heart thumped so hard I could barely think. I plugged in my headphones and pressed play. First it was static. Then the hum of our HVAC. Then Mark's voice. She's clueless. Honestly, I could probably file this week and she'd still be making me dinner. Silence. Unfamiliar woman's voice. You're dragging this out. What if she finds out? Mark, she won't. And even if she does, Ellie's already scared of her own shadow. She won't defend Danielle. I've got this under control. I stopped breathing. Another pause. Woman, and what about Ellie? You said she was starting to ask questions. Mark, I told her to keep her mouth shut or she'd regret it. That was it. That's what Ellie meant in the note. That's what she'd been carrying inside her little heart. Threats. Emotional warfare. I listened to the rest. Him talking about splitting accounts, about managing Danielle's reaction, about some backup plan involving his sister as a surprise legal witness. And then something else. Woman, so once she's out of the house, you'll move in? Mark, of course. I'm not doing this to play house with Danielle. You're the one I want. My stomach turned. It wasn't just lies. It wasn't just manipulation. He was cheating, gaslighting me while laying the groundwork to steal my daughter and my life. I sat there in the dark, clutching the recorder like it might bite me. I felt every part of me shift. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. This was war. And I wasn't going to lose. I was done being the clueless housewife. I was done sitting in silence while he planned my erasure. He didn't know it yet, but I had just become his worst mistake. I stared at my reflection that morning. Same tired eyes, same soft lines in the mirror. But something was different. Something behind the eyes had hardened. Mark kissed my cheek on his way out the door. Love you, he said without flinching. I just smiled. You too. Calmness in my voice must have scared the devil himself. I spent the entire day building my case, quietly, efficiently. Lena helped me create a digital copy of the audio recording. She also connected me with a discreet family law attorney named Camille Walsh, a former bulldog of a prosecutor turned divorce strategist. Camille listened to 5 minutes of the recording and didn't even blink. You have enough for a full custody suit, she said. And depending on his finances, we may be able to nail him on dissipation of assets if he's been spending on this woman. When do you want to move? Now, I said. Step 1. I opened a new bank account under my name and quietly redirected my direct deposit. Step 2. I logged into every shared platform, Google Drive, cloud storage, even our smart home login. I downloaded everything. Every text. Every call log. Every calendar entry. Step 3. I started playing the long game. I scheduled couples therapy. Not because I wanted to save our marriage. I wanted documentation. Proof that I tried. That he didn't. At our first session, Mark smiled his polished smile and said, I think we're just going through a phase. I looked the therapist in the eye. He's emotionally distant. Our daughter doesn't trust him. And I found a hotel receipt in his wallet. He chuckled like I was being dramatic. That was a business client. She scribbled something in her notes. I didn't push. I let him lie. I let the silence stretch. I knew every word he said would help me later. But the worst part? That night, Ellie came to my room after he fell asleep. She stood in the doorway in her oversized hoodie, fingers clenching the sleeves. "Mom," she whispered. "Can I tell you something without you getting mad?" I pulled her onto the bed, heart pounding. "Always." Her voice cracked. "He said if I told you anything, he'd send me away to live with his sister. That you'd choose him over me. I didn't know what to do, Mommy." "I'm sorry." I held her so tight my arms shook. "No, baby. I believe you. And I swear he's not going to hurt us anymore." In that moment, everything shifted. He thought I'd fall apart. But I was just getting started. A week later, the trap I had carefully laid began to close. Camille filed an emergency petition for temporary custody, citing emotional coercion, psychological manipulation, and threats against Ellie, backed by the audio recordings, Ellie's written journal entries, and therapist notes. Every document, every moment I'd silently endured was now a loaded weapon. Mark came home that Friday like any other day, loosening his tie, grabbing a beer, humming as if our family wasn't hanging by a thread he was cutting. "Danielle," he called from the kitchen, "where's the grocery list?" I stepped into the doorway calmly, holding a sealed envelope. "Actually, you'll be getting your own list now. From your lawyer." He blinked. "What?" I tossed the envelope on the counter. "Consider yourself served." His face darkened in slow motion. "You're divorcing me?" I folded my arms. "Full custody. Restraining order hearing. All of it." He laughed bitterly. "You're serious? Because I went to a hotel?" "No," I said, ice in my voice. "Because you threatened our daughter, lied to me, and were planning to destroy me behind my back. And I've got it all on tape." He froze. The blood drained from his face like someone pulled the plug. "You recorded me?" "I protected myself," I snapped. "The same way you plan to protect your assets." That night, he didn't sleep in our room. He barely spoke. The silence was volcanic. By Monday morning, he was served with a temporary restraining order, barring him from the house and from unsupervised contact with Ellie. His outrage was loud, theatrical. But when he showed up at the courthouse, it all meant nothing next to the judge playing back his own voice talking about manipulating his daughter and regretting honesty. The woman he was having the affair with? She didn't even show up to support him. His sister, the one he planned to use in court? She testified against him when Camille subpoenaed her texts that showed he was planning to make Ellie look unstable just to win custody. Mark's entire plan collapsed like a paper castle in a hurricane. And I never raised my voice once. Because revenge, I learned, is sweetest when served with absolute silence and undeniable truth. That night, after Ellie brushed her teeth and climbed into bed, she turned to me and whispered, "Are we going to be okay now?" I brushed the hair from her forehead and kissed her cheek. "Yes, baby. We finally are." But the war wasn't quite over. 'Cause next came the money. And I wasn't letting him walk away with a single dime he didn't deserve. Mark underestimated me. He thought I'd break. He thought I'd beg. But instead, I turned into a woman with spreadsheets, strategy, and a damn good attorney. Camille and I began forensic accounting, going through years of bank statements, retirement funds, side investments I wasn't even aware existed. She brought in a financial expert, a quiet guy named Reed who smiled like a bloodhound when he found something hidden. And he did. Private brokerage account. Then 2 years ago. In his name only. Funded with steady transfers from our joint savings, labeled as house repairs. Funny, we hadn't fixed anything. Worse? He had liquidated part of Ellie's college fund, moved it through a shell LLC, masking it as a business loss. I felt sick. But Camille? She looked like she'd just been handed a checkmate. "This is marital fraud," she said, eyes sparkling. "And judges don't take kindly to parents stealing from their own kids." I gave her the green light to file a motion for dissipation of marital assets, along with a financial restraining order. In simple terms, Mark couldn't touch a single dollar without court approval. He found out the same day the court froze his brokerage account. I'll never forget the moment he showed up outside Lena's house, red-faced, barking into the ring cam, trying to get me to talk like adults. Lena texted me, "He's sweating." "You won." But I wasn't done yet. During the depositions, Mark sat across from me in a stiff navy suit, smirking like it was all beneath him. His lawyer, a smug, overly confident man in suspenders, tried to discredit the recordings. Camille let them talk. Then she dropped Exhibit B, a printed transcript of the call between Mark and his mistress, including his full confession about hiding money before she gets smart and bleeds me dry. Courtroom was dead silent. Mark turned pale. His lawyer whispered something. Camille smiled. In that moment, I didn't feel bitter. I felt free. Everything he built behind my back, his lies, his money games, his emotional threats, it was all turning into ash. And the best part? Ellie never had to testify. Court accepted her journal entries and therapist statements as enough. My daughter got to stay a kid. We walked out of that courthouse, hand in hand. But Mark? He walked out alone. And the final ruling was still to come. It all came down to a crisp Monday morning. Courtrooms smelled of wood polish and quiet tension. Mark sat 3 rows ahead, alone, no mistress, no sister, no allies left. His lawyer flipped through a binder, but there was nothing left to fight for. Camille leaned over and whispered, "This is it. He's going to lose everything he tried to steal." The judge, an older woman with eyes like steel, cleared her throat and began reading the ruling. In the matter of Carson versus Carson, after reviewing audio evidence, financial statements, testimony, and psychological evaluations, this court finds compelling proof of emotional manipulation, attempted financial fraud, and coercion involving the minor child. I held Ellie's hand tight. She was there with me, this time not as a scared little girl but as my anchor. Full legal and physical custody is awarded to the petitioner, Danielle Carson. All visitation by the respondent shall be supervised, pending psychological assessment. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let the words settle like rain after a storm. But the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, based on documented dissipation of marital assets, the court awards the petitioner 82% of the marital estate. Mark's head snapped up. 82%. That included our home, his car, his investment accounts, everything he tried to stash away with whispered phone calls and secret receipts. The judge's gavel came down. That was it. Done. On the steps of the courthouse, the press wasn't waiting. No one threw confetti. There was no applause. But for me, it was louder than any celebration. Mark stormed past us without a glance. No, I'm sorry. No final lie. Just silence, the first honest thing he'd given me in years. Ellie turned to me, eyes shining. "Mom, can we go get pancakes?" I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. We did. We ate pancakes. We danced to cheesy music in the kitchen that night. We opened every curtain in the house and let the light in. 'Cause we were done hiding. Done surviving. We were healing. And he was erased from the foundation he tried to burn. But I built something stronger in its place. Because my daughter deserved better. And so did I. 2 months later, Ellie and I stood in our backyard under a Georgia sunset, warm, golden, and free. The garden Mark once ignored was now blooming. I dug my hands into that dirt the day the divorce was finalized. I needed something to grow from all the wreckage. Funny how things blossom when they're no longer afraid of being stepped on. Ellie was laughing more now, sleeping through the night. Her therapist said her drawings had changed. No more gray clouds and broken houses. Now it was trees, smiles, a mother and daughter under a big sun. Sometimes I catch her just watching me, quiet, peaceful. And when I ask her what's wrong, she always says, "Nothing. I'm just glad you're still here. I didn't just win a case. I reclaimed my daughter's safety, my dignity, my voice." Mark tried to contact me twice after the ruling. Both attempts were rerouted through Camille. He offered some vague apology once, something about not meaning to hurt anyone. But men like Mark don't apologize. Not really. They just regret getting caught. Last I heard, the woman he risked it all for had left him. The brokerage account he'd built behind my back? Seized. The fancy car? Sold. He's renting a one-bedroom now across town. I heard he doesn't decorate. I don't hate him, because hating him would mean giving him space in my new life. And he doesn't get to live here, not even in my thoughts. Ellie starts high school next fall. We've already toured the campus together. She wants to join the yearbook club and maybe try out for tennis. Her smile when she talks about it makes every sleepless night worth it. As for me, I'm going back to school too. Something in me stirred during those courtroom days. I realized how much power there is in truth, and in knowing how to wield it. Next fall, I begin night classes to earn my degree in family law. 'Cause I want to help other women who feel trapped, confused, silenced, just like I did. If I can be the voice they're missing, then none of this was in vain. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's not rage or violence or fire. Sometimes it's rebuilding quietly. Better, smarter, stronger, and leaving behind a legacy of peace. One that can't be erased.